She launched off the ledge, slipping and face planting on the water. When she resurfaced, Melody was howling with laughter. You didn't commit. Dove glared at her and pushed hair from her eyes. You guys didn't jump, she said, looking at Ethan, Charlie, and Giselle. Melody let out a battle cry and dove into the water, swimming to her friend. You have cancer? Ethan shrieked as he looked at Dove. Yeah, now jump! Charlie shook his head but jumped, limbs flailing. Giselle cannonballed into the water. The four looked at Ethan, waiting. He jumped too. Charlie turned on Dove. You didn't tell us, he said softly. She shrugged. Melody's observant. She picked up on it ages ago. I just didn't want you guys to worry, she said, climbing back onto the platform. Good job at that, Giselle muttered as she pushed Melody up. The boys continued to grumble as they grabbed their things and walked to Dove's car. Did your rides all take off? They nodded and climbed in the back. The silence was deafening. February arrived, which meant Valentine's. Melody huffed as she fell into Dove's bed. Ah, Valentine's, she complained. What's on your list? Dove looked up at the mirror. She was studying herself again. Mechanical bull. Melody whooped. Fun. Dove shook her head. I don't know if I can do it. Melody scoffed. You can, she declared as she stood. We'll do it tonight, then you can wallow in self-pity. The two were at Ethan's. He conveniently had a mechanical bull in his carport. He cringed as he looked at the two. You sure about this? Melody nodded, her now bright red hair covering her eyes. Ethan nodded softly and helped her on before turning the bull on. I'm not a baby, Ethan. Level it up. He glanced at Melody, who was sitting on a stool with two wheat bags, one over her legs, the other resting on her stomach. She was squirming slightly as she tried to get comfortable. Ethan did as he was told, still watching Dove. You okay, V? She nodded. You got a cushion? Ethan's mother, who was leaning on the gate, nodded. Yeah, I'll go and get one. Eventually Melody fell off. Dove had no clue how long she managed to stay on the bull for, but she wouldn't last as long. Ethan and his mother winced as she crashed into the padding below the bull. You good? Melody whispered, kneeling by her head. Fine. Dove had been on the couch with Sam for the past month. Falling off that bull had hurt. Her legs had started swelling a little. Sam was extra patient with Dove. She couldn't keep much down anymore. She was constantly nauseous and tired. Her eyes, usually full of emotions and brightness, were dull and sad all the time. Her lips were cracked, her skin pale. Her hair wasn't as shiny anymore, and she had lost so much weight. It was the beginning of the end. She was supposed to spend as much time as possible with her friends and family. Ethan, Charlie, Melody and Giselle practically slept at her house now. Everyone was scared they would wake up one morning and she wouldn't. Eventually May turned to June, 12 months since her diagnosis. Sam holed her up in her room crying. On the 18th, Dove finally stood from the couch and walked to her room. Everyone was asleep. She looked at the list for the last time. 12. Find peace. She watched the tree outside her room as a dove flitted past, a butterfly following it. She smiled, softly ticking off her last task, before grabbing her own piece of paper and writing out a quote for Sam. She filled the pages with how she'd felt the last 12 months. She takes extra care to write that even if university was always the dream, she wouldn't want to go anymore, even if she was healthy. She would take Melody and travel the world, do something unexpected. On the final page, she writes that she wants Sam to travel the world, do something unexpected. She writes to her friend that she wants them to look after each other and asks them to make sure Sam finishes her bucket list. She writes out Sam a bucket list, pausing for a moment before writing out the last task, copying her father's loopy writing, find love. She needed to be sure Sam would be okay when she was gone. She wrote their names on the front of the book and walked back to the living room, placing the book carefully next to Sam and Melody. For the first time in 3 months, Dove went to sleep in her own bed, imagining her father was reading her a story before bed. She smiled. She had found her peace, and she had drifted off. Months of anger and sadness melted away. Dove was going to be all right. She had completed her list, kept her promise. She was happy. She had found what friends and family meant to her. She had found that living without rules and doing things weren't studying or looked good on her university application was what made her happy. That was what her dad wanted, for her to let go of control and be happy. The next morning, Sam and Melody shot up, looking at the couch. Dove? Ethan smacked Charlie in the face as he scrambled to his feet. Charlie looked around the room, bleary-eyed. He could hear sobbing coming from her bedroom. Giselle wasn't with them. Melody clutched the book in her hands as Charlie and Sam raced to Dove's room. Giselle was sitting on the floor next to Dove's bed, a pale, lifeless hand grasped in hers. Sam walked with shaky legs to Dove. She smoothed her hair back and pressed a kiss to her forehead before falling to her knees and crying into her daughter's stomach. The five stood in Dove's room, remembering small things like when she got her first soccer trophy or her first netball goal after months of trying. Melody placed a hand on Sam's shoulder. You should read this first. Sam gripped the book as Melody handed it to her, and a strangled combination of a scream and a cry tore through Sam's throat. Melody looked over her best friend's face, softly smiling. Dove had fallen asleep smiling. She was happy, and that was enough. And that's the end of this fantastic story by Tayla Willson. Great job, Tayla. Thanks for listening.